Welcome to Marin Voices and Views. With Lawrence A. Strick, I'm Peter B. Collins. In our second segment, in a few minutes, we'll talk with Frank Egger, who's an elected member of the board of the Ross Valley Sanitary District, which is at the center of some local controversies.
But first, Peter, we welcome back Marin County Superintendent of Schools, Mary Jane Burke. Ms. Burke is in her 5th term as the elected superintendent. She started as a classroom volunteer, was a principal, and I guess you got your first election in 1994.
Right.
You always have your finger on the pulse of Marin County and what's happening with our kids. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We just finished the year. We've gone through the 4th budget cut in a row. How did the schools do?
Well, if you think about how did they do, did they have dedicated, passionate teachers and staff supporting our children? Absolutely yes. But as it has related to the resources that have been available, it's been a very dire year and of grave concern. Marin County schools have lost over $55 million in the last couple of years, and that has had significant impact in all the schools in our community.
And what are the impacts? Because a lot of parents look at their school and say, well, we're doing okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, the impacts can vary from district to district, but I'll give you a sense of the kinds of things that you might have seen previously that you don't see now. Many children no longer have transportation, school buses to get to school. They might walk into a school where the class sizes will be higher by up to 5, 8 children more in kindergarten through 3rd grade. They might have had the opportunity to enjoy an art class in visual performing arts, music. Those programs in many of our schools no longer exist. And the thought of having a librarian or a librarian aide in many settings is no longer part of what should be the fabric of each and every school in our community.
Mm-hmm. As we're speaking here in mid-June, Mary Jane, the budget process is still underway in Sacramento. It doesn't look good. There's a $16 billion shortfall this year, and more cuts are planned. Also, the governor is banking or betting, depending on how you look at it, that voters will approve a tax hike ballot measure in November. And this budget is going to be based on that assumption. And if voters decline to approve that, then there are trigger cuts that will automatically go into effect at the first of the year. What are your thoughts about this process and your advice to voters?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me start by saying that it is time that we invest in the public schools in our community. It has been far too long that we have had unreliable funding and a cut-based system. What we are up against is the projection that in the event that the governor's initiative does not pass, that we will have at least a cut of $441 less per child. And that is on top of, in Marin County, the fact that we are not receiving resources for students with significant mental health needs to the tune of $3 million. What many of us are looking at, and across the state, the thought that we would have actually 15 fewer school days for the children in the public schools of our community, and that is absolutely unthinkable. So what I say to the voters is be sure that you're thoughtful and mindful of what it means to have a strong state, a state that is able to take care of the most vulnerable, whether it's our older people or our children, to invest in kids through strong public schools, and that means we need to support the governor's initiative, absolutely.
It must be extremely uncomfortable having to be completely dependent on the whims of the voters in Sacramento. Are you able to plan? What do you do?
Well, what we end up doing is we plan for the worst and hope for the best. And so what's the impact of that? Teachers in our community in Marin County, classified staff being laid off. And we know that the number one factor that, besides a parent, right, the first best, most important teacher, is a strong teacher in every classroom. And we are very challenged in our community if we keep bringing in the new teachers who join other committed teachers, and they keep getting laid off. So it's not the way that we should operate if we truly believe that the children of our community represent the future. And I know that we say those words, but we really need to make sure that the funding's available. California, on a ratio of adult to student, is 50th in our country. That's unacceptable. When it comes to how much revenue we spend, we're in the bottom 3 or 4. So, this state really has to make a determination about what is important. And I do believe that there are many things that are important and that affect children and families. Schools are one of those. But also we need to make sure that there are supports in place so that children without health care actually get immunizations, that families that need to have food on the table, that those children are able to access lunch programs. But I feel so strongly that the public schools provide the leveling for children, and it provides our strategy for a stronger tomorrow. And we're in the process of dismantling that year by year by year by year. And I think that people need to speak up with a loud, strong voice on behalf of our schools.
As I look at it, I see the problem in another angle for you. You hear a lot of talk about public employee unions not being helpful to the state of California, in fact, distracting for the state of California. There's a lot of talk about pension reform that's going to make it perhaps a two-tiered system, or not as attractive for people to go into public service at all. Does that impact you, and are we going to be able to get quality teachers with all the problems that you're talking about?
Well, there's definitely an impact, because when people are sitting around the dining table, they're not necessarily saying to their children, when you grow up, we want you to be a teacher, because they worry about the low salaries combined with the consistent layoff notices. As it relates to the issues around pension, one of the things that's been a standard for our public school teachers is that they pay in half of the retirement. That demand continues to be in place. And I'm hoping that that everyone in the community will understand that when someone's paying half of their, half of that retirement, that makes a difference in the way that people will look at it, for sure. But ultimately, if we don't have great teachers in classrooms, then we can be certain that we will be in a position where our children will not be getting what they need, because what they need are teachers who are obviously fully engaged and teaching them the basics that include critical thinking, what it means to truly be well educated, consequences for behaviors, what it means to give back to community, in addition to the 3 R's, which of course is obviously a basic.
Mary Jane, there's a second ballot measure that's expected to be on the November ballot, sponsored by a woman named Molly Munger, and she inherited money from her dad's part of the Warren Buffett empire. And her measure is broader tax increases. It affects just about everybody. And the funds are dedicated to education funding. Do you think voters should support both of these initiatives? Or do you have concerns about the Molly Munger proposal?
At this point, I feel strongly that the governor's initiative should be supported. This initiative is essentially taking care of the deficit in our state and will take us to a stronger position into the future. It also is directly addressing the issues related to the deferrals that have been happening in the school. So in other words, instead of saying, here's money, go ahead, start some new stuff, we're going to pay back the money that we've not yet provided to you. The other initiative, while it seems to focus on schools, it is very narrow in its focus. And I believe that it's my responsibility to worry about the broader base. I need to have a strong state to have strong public schools, and feel that it would be narrow-minded on my part to say, oh, no, just worry about the schools. Let the state, fall off the cliff. And in the end, if the state falls off the cliff, the schools fall off the cliff.
Very interesting. Can you tell us what school districts in Marin, or even particular schools, are at risk if the governor's proposal fails?
Actually, all of the schools in Marin will be affected. So this is a situation where, regardless of the funding sources, and in our community we have districts that are considered to be community funded or basic aid districts, as well as revenue limit districts, and all of the districts will ultimately be affected. And so when I say $441 per kid, essentially that will affect all the children in our community.
I refuse to just have this doom and gloom. Tell us what's going on that's great here in Marin County.
Okay, what's great?
Give us a little, give us a little bit of some good news here.
What's great is that this is a community that has very high expectations and high standards for the schools, and we have enjoyed strong community support in a variety of ways. And sometimes it's related to fundraising that happens within the schools. Sometimes it's volunteer hours. Sometimes it's our voters saying, yes, we are willing to support these public schools because of what they're being held accountable to and achieving. So they'll pass parcel taxes, bonds, etc. Just this week, I was in Ross Valley for the groundbreaking of a new school. We have a new school being built in White Hill School. We have a new school being built in the Larkspur School District. I mean, it's not very often, right, that we've had a new school. And these are schools that are going to be set up looking at 21st century learning. So you won't see a school that's structured in the same way that we might have seen individual classrooms. 3 of our schools were just announced to be California Distinguished Schools within the last month or so. 2 in Novato, 1 in the San Rafael School District. We are doing a lot related to blended learning, trying to make sure we're using technology. It's a tool, but using it in the way that's going to keep kids motivated. So you may have heard about flip teaching. We just had an environment where we all went to Tamalpais High School, got to see this four amazing educators talk about how they're utilizing technology in a way to motivate kids, keep parents connected. We also have people who really get it, that in the end of the story, that our job is to get these young people ready for life. And so you don't see sort of this narrow-minded focus on we have achieved because of a particular test score.
Great.
That's not enough. So we have great schools.
Mary Jane Burke is the superintendent of schools here in Marin County, and someday she'll be more enthusiastic.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Mary Jane.
Thank you very much.
Frank Egger returns to our program today. He served many years on the Fairfax Town Council, including, I think, 3 tours as mayor. A longtime advocate for our rivers and the environment, he last appeared on this show before as an opponent of the Water District's desalination plans, and today I promised we won't ask him to drink any bay water. On June 5th, Frank was elected to a full term on the board of the Ross Valley Sanitary District after being appointed in 2011 to fill a vacancy. First, Frank, could you give us a few facts? What communities are served by the Ross Valley District? Roughly how many miles of sewer pipe are there? What's the current budget and how many employees?
Sure. There are 4 cities, incorporated cities, in the Ross Valley Sanitary District. There's Fairfax, San Anselmo, Ross, and Larkspur. There's the unincorporated areas of Sleepy Hollow, Oak Manor, Kentfield, Kent Woodlands, and Greenbrier. We serve about 55,000 residents. We provide sewer services for 55,000 residents here in the Ross Valley. A couple hundred miles of pipe, easy, plus the private laterals. The budget was recently adopted on a 3-2 vote. It's a $31+ million budget, up 100% from last year's $14+ million budget. So a significant increase this year.
Yeah.
It was approved on a split vote, on a 3-2 vote.
And roughly how many employees are on the payroll?
We have about 38, and there may be a couple of vacancies. There may be 2 vacancies right now. I'm not sure the total number of vacancies,
Okay.
but roughly 38.
So it seems to me, and from what I hear about your district, the pipes are aging. There's an urgent, would you agree, urgent need to make corrections in the pipe system?
Absolutely, we need repairs, and the pipes they are aging, similar to the other sewer agencies here in the Bay Area.
But the accounts that we hear coming out of your district is there's a major disagreement as to how fast to do the work, who's going to do the work, what work's going to be done, and how you're going to pay for it. And there's some issues that residents are fearful, or some are fearful or alarmed that the rate increase over the next 5 years is going to be about 100%. What's going on over there?
Well, that was an option that was before the board at budget time when the board approved that budget on a 3-2 vote. It would have taken four positive votes to change the way the revenue is generated to provide the services. The district currently is on basically a per unit charge, and a proposal was in the works to go to a flow-based system where their water bills would be the basis for how much their sewer bill was going to be. The less water they use, the less amount of sewer bill they would have. And it seems to be a good thing. It would support conservation. It would reward folks for conserving water. But the downside of it was going to result in almost a 100% increase over a 5-year period. And 2 directors, Pam Meggs and myself, felt that was just too much to ask of the voters. Also, when we talked about bonds, selling bonds anywhere from $59 to $100 million for the bonds, we had asked that go before the voters, that the voters be allowed to weigh in on the issue. And an advisory ballot would have been okay too. It still may be okay. We have to go into our communities and explain the problem, show them what's going to be done, show them how much it's going to cost them, and have community buy-in. Otherwise, we can't continue to go down this path without any community support at all. 3 of our 4 city and town councils opposed what we were doing. The Board of Supervisors opposed what we were doing. And obviously, as a result of the election, you could tell the voters were not supportive of the direction that the agency was going either.
Now, from an outside perspective, I live in the Ross Valley, but I have to confess I've never paid much attention to the sanitary district and its operations. But from the coverage in the Independent Journal, it seems almost like a rogue agency where the directors have been spending more money than ratepayers have authorized. There have been a lot of lawsuits, and there is this conflict over the pipe replacement, whether it should be subbed out to contractors or the work be done by staff people, and I don't really have a strong opinion about that. What is your view about the proper way to manage this agency, and has it become kind of a rogue one?
Well, what's happened is the agency has maybe been its own worst enemy, and the direction we've been going against public opinion has not been well received by the community, and therefore, folks look at the agency as you say, maybe a rogue agency. We're really not a rogue agency. We've got a job to do. We've got pipes to fix. We've got to move the wastewater. But there's a couple different ways to do that, and the too fast, too expensive, too fast, too quick is kind of one of the issues here that we're dealing with, or a couple of the issues we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
The lawsuits. Well, over the past few years, there were millions of dollars put out in attorney fees for these lawsuits, and there was the $4.7 million settlement with the people that actually purchased the sanitary district's land and at Larkspur Landing. They ended up going into bankruptcy. They blamed the district for not being able to move forward because of, they said there was paint contamination from the old buildings, from the old sewer treatment plant, and that was there. And the district settled for $4.7 million out of court. The attorney bill for that was I think $1.6 million. Very expensive proposition. And there's times when a public agency is sued and has to defend itself. And there's times when this public agency has to sue to further to protect itself. And that's going to happen from time to time, whether it's a county agency, the Board of Supervisors, or a city, or a town, or a sewer agency, or a water district. So the lawsuits have the numbers have declined. There's some issues out there. There's some issues out there. In fact,
Let me ask you. I'm getting confused. It's from what I hear you said, is this agency's been going in a direction that's too fast, too much, too expensive. There's a new regime's coming in. It sounds like new electeds are coming in.
Yes.
You included.
Yes.
That are changing or want to change gears or get a handle on moving forward.
absolutely.
If I'm a homeowner in the Ross Valley and paying my bills to you guys, what was happening to me before? How is it going to change now? What does it mean to the guy who owns a house and just wants to go forward?
The board ended up adopting the same rate as we had last year, when they couldn't get the 4 votes necessary to change how the revenue was going to be brought in. They ended up, the board on a 5-0 vote approved last year's rate. So there's no change in the rates. So the resident's not going to see a huge increase or even a small increase in their bill. It's going to be the same.
Are they going to get more for the same money or get less for the same money? I guess that's what I'm asking
Well,
here.
hopefully they're going to get more for the same money. You know, we've gone through some processes where these jobs have been put out. The board has a proposal for the management, for the board, and say $1 million project. We do not prepare plans and specs. We let the contractor, in effect, prepare their own plans and specs. We note what the job is, what it entails, and we ask them to come up with a plan to fix it. That seems a little backwards to me. It seems we ought to be determining what the project's going to be, what kind of pipe, what kind of warranty we want on the job. You know, we just had one in Larkspur. It's over $1 million. We replaced a pipeline that was close to collapsing on us, and at the time the bid was let. It was an emergency project, and I asked a question. I said, "What kind of warranty do we have? First of all, what kind of pipe is this? Where is the nation of origin for this pipe? Because I understand there are some problems with some pipes that are made in some foreign countries." And the response was, "Well, we don't know where the pipe's made." I said, "Well, you know, shouldn't we be looking at pipe made in the U.S. of A? Aren't we trying to, you know, not only fix our system, but provide some jobs here in this country rather than some foreign country?" Number one. Number two, well, what's the warranty on it? And it was told, well, the warranty is 1 year. And I said, how could this be a 1-year warranty? We're spending $1 million fixing a pipe, and is it guaranteed for 1 year? So if you put a roof on your house, it's guaranteed for longer than that. It doesn't seem right. So hopefully we're going to be able to get a handle on these jobs, and the board's going to help determine the overall scope of the project and what kind of a project it's going to be. One of the issues we've had is a number of projects that we've let. There's been no money budgeted for them. There's no money in the reserves to do the job, and yet we've approved about $8 million in projects, and we don't know how we're going to pay for them. That's a problem.
That is a problem. Now,
That's a problem.
what about the Kentfield spill in 2010? Recently, the district had to pay out $1.5 million in state fines and remediation projects. Is this an issue, what you were just referring to, that the contractor was not properly overseen and didn't have appropriate specs for the job?
Well, I came on board 18 days before the spill, and I really wasn't privy to how the project was bid out and how it was inspected, et cetera. Right now, there's currently litigation going on, and I had a deposition a couple weeks ago, and the J&B Construction Company is the defendant in this lawsuit, and
So the district may recover some of that money
well,
from the contractor?
well, it's possible. It's possible.
Yeah.
You know, I don't pretend to know which way this is going to go at all.
Okay, and finally, Frank, how should residents, ratepayers in the district be involved in what's going on at the sanitary board?
Well, what we're going to start doing, and I really I can't speak for the board because I'm just one member, but I think there'll be support for this, is that we're going to do a regular notification process for folks, so they understand, so they know when the meetings are, what time they are, where they're taking place. You know, there's been some issues between the management and the Marin Independent Journal, for instance. The Marin IJ is the only daily newspaper in Marin, and if we're trying to get notice out to folks about a meeting, when a time and a place for a meeting, when the issues could be discussed, that's one means of doing it, is going to the Marin IJ, and we don't do that, and so we're going to have to change the way we notify folks for our meetings, for one, for sure.
I wish we had more time, Frank. We have to wrap up. Thanks for joining us today.
Okay.
Frank Egger from the Ross Valley Sanitary District Board.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Shirley.